I have spent more time walking around this house looking for all of the books that I wanted to include in this video than all of the time I suspect it will take to make this video. But nevertheless, you need a Catholic library in your home, and in this video I will give you 7 steps to build such a library. But first, as always, we start with our mission.
Always remember, God created us for this time and for this place. If we learn this faith, if we live this faith, if we share this faith, what will the next 100 years look like? Join the mission.
As Catholics, we should approach the study of Christian doctrine in a very similar way to the way we approach prayer, whether that's private prayer or liturgical prayer. Both of these things, prayer and study, both of them have this quality of helping us to come to know more deeply who God is and the truths that He has passed down through His church to us today. So we come to know Him more clearly through praying, let's say in adoration or praying the rosary, as well as reading and studying His Word and reading great books that have been written by the church and by teachers in the church. So it's important for us as Catholics to have these books not just in a library somewhere, but actually in our homes so that we have access to them. We have regular daily access to these books. Our families, our wives, our children all have access to these books so that everybody in our household can come to know God more clearly. Just like we would pray a family rosary, spending time studying God's Word and Christian doctrine is just as important. So in this video, I'm going to go over some steps, some helps, so that you can choose properly what books to buy for your Catholic library, because none of us have an endless amount of space. We have a small home here and we've got books spread all over the place, and none of us have an endless amount of money, and some of these books have been pretty expensive. So you have to be selective. And so in this video, I'll go over 7 steps to help you make the best decision over what books to buy and how to kind of organize it in your home. So if you've been anywhere around Catholic YouTube for the last year or so, surely you've heard multiple references to this book. This is Fundamentals of Catholic Dogma by Ludwig Ott. This is not a cheap volume. I think I paid almost $60, $50+ for this book. And if you're going to build a Catholic library with materials like this, it can be quite a financial burden. So you're going to have to kind of plan out how am I going to accomplish this. If you're a young married couple and you have lots of kids, then it becomes, you have to really kind of think about, is this where I want to be putting my money? So what we've done here is each month we'll budget somewhere between $20 and $50 per month on Catholic books, depending on how things are going. But the caveat is that we don't have cable. We don't have any streaming services. There's no Netflix. We found that we were either binge watching junk or we were never turning the TV on to begin with. So it was one extreme or the other. So it was either a waste of our time or it was a waste of our money. And so we just made the decision to turn all of that stuff off, to save the money and to use that money for other things. So, and if there's ever a time that you want to watch something, you probably get it at Redbox or something for $1. So that's worked for us. If you have little kids, and it'd probably be better for your family to turn the stuff off anyways and find other ways of spending your family time anyways. I think in my decision, you have to make your own decision, but in my judgment, this is money better spent here than on that garbage. Number 2, very important, don't overlook this one, organizing your books. It's very important that you have some kind of system so that you know where your books are. Otherwise, you'll spend hours, trust me, hours walking from room to room, walking in circles, endlessly looking for books that you can never, ever seem to find. It's important to have some kind of system. Now, I would love to tell you that we've got everything perfectly organized. That's not the case. I have piles of books, just like what you're looking at here. I've got piles of books scattered around this house where I started some kind of research project and then ended up walking away from it, and there the books remain. And then when I need them, I can't find them. But in a perfect world, our books would be organized in this manner. Theology section, theology and apologetics, we kind of keep most of those books in the living room where our books are scattered around the house because we have a small house, so we've got bookshelves in every room. It'd be great to have one central location, but that's not the way it's going to be right now. Anyways, we have the theology and the apologetics books and the saints, the lives of the saints, and Catholic history. We have those types of things in the living room where everybody can access that. The kids, those are the topics the kids are most interested in. So theology and apologetics, we're going to have things like the Catechism, Baltimore Catechisms, apologetics books like Catholicism and Fundamentalism, the Jimmy Akin stuff, the Patrick Madrid stuff, the Trent Horn stuff. All that stuff's going to be in that section. Out here, I have more academically minded stuff. I've got a lot of church documents, just stacks and stacks of encyclicals. Whenever I can get an encyclical, I try to get some. The Popes Against Modern Errors, great book, lots of encyclicals in there. The council documents, I try to get as many of those as I can for reference material. Also out here, I have probably my favorite section, probably my largest section, is the scripture section. In that section, I'm going to have things like different Bible translations, Bible commentaries, commentaries by the church fathers, lots of Scott Hahn stuff, Catholic Bible Dictionary, Scott Hahn's Bible Dictionary, excellent resource. Spirituality, Christian spirituality. Most of this stuff I keep either in the living room and it spills over into the bedroom because I tend to read that stuff in the evening. But that's where you're going to have Therese, that's Catherine, Therese, some of these books I'm going to go over in a few minutes. The Fulfillment of All Desire, that type of stuff is going to be in that section. Philosophy I have out here. I've got classical philosophy, Christian philosophers like Aquinas, and then modern philosophers. Don't overlook that. You kind of need to know where they're coming from. And then I mentioned the lives of the saints in the history section. So that's how we have our library organized, or how we would like to have it organized. But in truth, this is pretty much what my house looks like. Number 3, what books should you actually buy? There's so many choices. What do you buy? Only buy things that you're interested in, things that are going to be useful to you and your family. So if you're watching Matt Fradd and he's interviewing somebody and they're talking on a particular topic, and you find Matt's shows are like 3 hours long. If you are able to go through that show for 3 hours, then chances are you're very interested in that topic. So whatever books they're making reference to in that video, that's probably a safe bet that you'll be interested in those books. Whenever I'm watching one of these podcasts and they're making references to books, and I think I might be interested in them, I'm pausing the video and then going over to Amazon, looking it up. First of all, to see, is it super expensive? And then kind of to look through, sometimes they'll have a preview where you can see the table of contents. And I'll kind of look at it to see, is this something I would really be interested in? If so, I put it on a wish list and I leave it there until some future time when the budget works out and I can buy it. It's happened before that I've done that. I put tons of books on the wish list, but then by the time I have the money to buy them, I find I've lost interest in that, and there's other books on the wish list that I'm more interested in. And so that's kind of how I find books. Also, another manner is the footnotes that you find in books. So this is a perfect example. This is The Nature of the Human Soul by Sister Mary Angelica Neenan, OP, one of our St. Cecilia sisters here in Nashville. Great book. I've talked about this book many times. It's on human anthropology. It's a great book, and I cannot recommend it enough. But I just loved it, and as I'm reading it, the footnotes in the book that she keeps making references to become another source. You're looking at those. If you're interested in the book and you see references that she's making in footnotes, endnotes, and the bibliography, that can be an indication that you might be interested in buying those books as well. So she's making constant reference to this book. This is The Sources of Christian Ethics by Servis Pinkers. Finding this in the footnotes over and over again and being thoroughly interested in this material, I knew I'd be interested in getting this book. So I did. It was not cheap. There's a caveat to that, though. Don't just blindly buy things, as I'm saying, from the footnotes. Check them out first. It usually is the case that some of these more popular books, the sources that they are using are more academic in their nature. What I mean by that is, I grabbed these two books because I figured people might be more familiar with these. This is, everybody knows Scott Hahn. So both of these books, this is A Father Who Keeps His Promises. You probably have this book. And this is Kinship by Covenant. Both of these books are essentially the same content, the same material. However, this was Dr. Hahn's dissertation, and this is a popular book that he wrote for the general public. In order to read something like this, you've got to be prepared. You've got to have a lot of background knowledge. There's a lot of vocabulary in here, and he's presuming that you already know those things. Whereas here, these kinds of books are written on more of an introductory level. So it's important to know that distinction, and if you are buying books, as I say, from the footnotes or the bibliography from other books, just be aware that chances are those books are going to be more academic in nature, and that may be a good thing for you because it's kind of raise the level of your reading. So yeah, make a list, find books from podcasts and from footnotes. Number 4, where on earth are you going to get all of these books? I mean, how are you going to build a library without constantly depending upon Amazon? I think all of us would do much better with much less big tech in our lives, especially Amazon. So I think it's important for us to have other sources of places to buy books besides just constantly going back and forth to Amazon all of the time. Otherwise, Amazon is just going to take over the whole world.
I don't want to take over the world. I just want to help you.
Anyways, I think it's important for us to have other sources of books. You can always just go directly to the publisher's website and buy them directly instead of using Amazon as a middleman. Now, I know that's much easier said than done. Sometimes some of these books are very rare and your only sources may be Amazon. But don't forget your church festivals, the fall festivals, all those fundraising things they do. Believe it or not, I found books like this at the parish festival for like 50 cents, 10 cents, I don't remember. But what I imagine what's happening is older parishioners are cleaning out their garage or their attic or whatever, and they're donating these old books to the parish, and the parish is just selling them for 10 cents in the parking lot. So we got old Latin missals, Baltimore catechisms, tons of books that I've got in my library are just old books that I got from these church festivals. Also, other sources online besides Amazon. I had this happen. We're doing a series on Christian social principles. This is an older book published in 1941. I guess it was out of print, and Sophia just brought it back last year, and we're doing a video series on it. So look for those videos if you haven't seen them yet. But while producing that series of videos, I was doing research on this book, and I found an old review from the 40s on the book, and I was reading it, and as I'm reading it, at the bottom, there was another book, and the title intrigued me, and I read that review, and I got interested. I wanted to buy that book, so I did what we always do. I went to Amazon, I typed in the title of the book. It came up, $86 used from there was one copy, $86, and I got discouraged because I thought, I'm not going to be able to get the book. But I didn't give up there. I went back to Google, typed it in, and it came up for $7 at thriftbooks.com. And here it is. It's called A Generation of Materialism, 1871 to 1900. Looks really interesting. Haven't read it yet. This just happened, this week. I just got this book. I haven't even opened it yet. But this is what instigated this whole video to begin with. But anyways, if you know other places online where you can get books, other websites besides Amazon, please share them in the comments below. I know we could all benefit from that. Also, don't forget your local Catholic bookstores. If you have one, we have one here in Nashville. I'm looking for a book. I guess I lost it. We have St. Mary's Bookstore on West End in Nashville. If you ever come to Nashville, you'll see it, because if you're a tourist in Nashville, you'll be on West End. Number 5, Now that you have all these books, what do you do with them? It's important to have a plan of attack, a study plan. Otherwise, these books may just end up lost on your bookshelf, just collecting dust. And that's not why you went through the trouble or the expense to get them. You brought them into your house to enrich your life and to help you grow closer to God. It's important to have a plan for actually reading these books. I think the most important thing is to have an area in your home, we call it the new book bookshelf, whether that's actually a section of a bookshelf or the nightstand or whatever, the piano in the living room. You have a place where you stack your new books as they're coming into the house. And that way, if you were to take a book, let's say you get this book and it's on apologetics, you get it, and then you go and immediately put it on the bookshelf next to your other apologetics books, you'll forget that you have it and you'll never read the book. It'll end up sitting there collecting dust. But putting it on your new book bookshelf, that's where you go to get your books when it's time for reading. Which brings me to the next point, a family reading time. What we've done here since our kids were little is we've had a family prayer time, but part of that family prayer time was dedicated to reading, to study. Maybe 15, 20 minutes of reading out of the family prayer time. And everybody's in the living room. Everybody's reading their own thing. It's all spiritual or religious or theology. It's something of that nature. We're not reading, novels or whatever. But we're reading that, and that's on a daily. It's Monday through Thursday. We don't do that on the weekends because everybody's, doing social activities or whatever. But that's important to have that family reading time. And then, after the kids go to bed, you can read even further afterwards. But at least have that set time. And then those books that you're reading during that time, they're coming from the new book bookshelf. Lastly, I would say that I've mentioned before that I'm a terrible reader. I'm a high school dropout. I really struggled in school. It's very difficult for me to read these books. I know some people are great readers and they can whiz through these in a couple days. It'll take me, a lifetime to read all of these things. This book right here, Fulfillment of All Desire, I love this book, but I think it took me 3 or 4 years to read this book, maybe longer. I just work slowly through them, and then I get lost, and then I give up, and then I come back to them. I think a lot of people do that. It used to bother me, but I made the decision that I'm okay with that. I've given up on the idea of trying to finish the books. I get the books, and I'm reading the sections of the books that are pertinent to what I'm studying or what I'm learning at that time, what's necessary. So, for example, picking up this book again, Keating is talking about a lot of different topics in this book. I don't necessarily need to learn about all of those topics today, but maybe one chapter in here is pertinent to something I'm actually doing in one of these videos or in my own life or whatever. So it only becomes necessary for me in that sense to read one chapter in this book. So in that sense, I'm treating all of these books kind of like reference books. I'm looking things up in them and reading certain sections. And that's helpful because I can read a section in this book and then read the corresponding section in this book and kind of compare, or it will help me learn the topic more deeply rather than just trying to finish the book for the sake of finishing the book. Number 6, treasure your favorite books. So I just mentioned that I don't necessarily finish all of these books. I treat them like reference materials. That is not true for this stack. This stack, these are my favorite books. And not only have I read every word of every page, I've read every word of every page multiple times. Some of these books I've read 10, 15 times each. I've done that because they have been very, very fruitful to my life. And so it's been very good for me to constantly refer back to these books. So for these books do not go on my regular bookshelf. These go on my nightstand. I call that my favorite books. I'll show you some of these. Aren't all of them. I just grabbed a handful to bring in here. So this is My Way of Life by Walter Farrell. This is basically a shorter, I think he calls it a shorter summa, Simplified for everyone. So it's kind of like devotional reading rather than theological reading. I have talked about this book numerous times on the channel. The Introduction to the Devout Life by St. Francis de Sales. The Soul of the Apostolate, I've talked about this. The Beginnings in the Spiritual Life. These two are new to my favorite book pile. Thomistic Psychology by Robert Brennan, OP. Fantastic book on human anthropology, a topic I'm more and more interested in, and I think this may be the best book on the topic. And then I'm still working my way through this one, but I can tell it's going to be on the favorite bookshelf. Reality, A Synthesis of Thomistic Thought by Reginald Garrigou-Lagrange, OP. So, and there's other books on the favorite bookshelf. But anyways, have that favorite bookshelf, and then those become the books that you're constantly referring to. Those are the books that nourish your life. Number 7, be generous with your books. What I mean is, if you're older like me and you've spent years accumulating these books and studying from these books and benefiting from what's in these books, when you come across younger Catholics or maybe some people who are not as well off as you, and you're discussing their faith with them and they mention that they're struggling with this or that, it's going to occur to you that, hey, this person may benefit from this book or this person may benefit from that book. Be generous. Share your books with them. Either lend them or give them away or perhaps buy them their own copy of that book. But you, since you've studied this material, you're kind of like an ambassador of the contents. You know what's in here, and you can kind of unlock it for another person. You can say, hey, you should read this book by so-and-so. You'll be able to give somebody an invaluable reference. That's how most of the books in this stack, especially this one, The Soul of the Apostolate, a friend of mine recommended that I read this book because they were listening to what I was saying, and they recognized that that's what I needed. And they were right. That book has become one of my favorite books. So be generous with your books and share them with other people in your lives. Okay, so as you continue to build your Catholic library, make sure that you're subscribed to this channel. We will continue to produce videos just like this one to introduce you to great Catholic books. Just like this video here, where we give you the top Christian spirituality books that you should have in your home library. Click here to watch that video, and we'll see you over there. In this video, I will show you some of the best books to help you grow spiritually, even when you are struggling to find a good spiritual director.